Hello friends, this is Shubham and today I am going to talk about the anatomy of ear or the overview of the ear. Basically, our ear is mainly divided into the three parts, that is the external ear, middle ear and the inner ear. So here I have drawn the diagram of our ear in which this part is the external ear, this is the part of the external ear, this part is the middle ear, and this part I have drawn over here is the inner ear. So what structures mainly are present in these parts of the ear, that is external ear, middle ear and the inner ear, and how our ear helps us in hearing different kinds of voices. So we will talk about that. So starting with the first one, that is the external ear. External ear has generally speaking, mainly has two parts, that is the auricle, or that is also called as the pinna, and second one is the external acoustic meatus, okay, or external auditory meatus you can say. However, our external ear has further more parts also. For example, if we talk about this external ear, we have the pinna, that is called as the auricle, that is the main part of course, or the external ear as far as external ear is concerned. Further we have this part, okay, this part made up of fat, which is also called as the lobule. So this part on both the sides of our ear, these are called as the lobules. This part, the elevated structure, this elevated structure made up of the cartilage, this part is called as the tragus. And opposite to that, we have one more elevation over here on the both sides of the ear, of course. So this elevation of our ear, this part of our ear. So this is the tragus, and opposite to that, this is the antitragus. Likewise, we have the helix. This structure here, we have the helix, and inner to that, we have the antihelix. However, more inside, if you will go, then you will find the concave, and further, our external acoustic meatus or external auditory meatus is continuing from there up till the tympanic membrane, or also known as the eardrum, which is actually separating the external ear from the middle ear. So the basic and the very important point for the eardrum or tympanic membrane is that it usually separates the external ear from our middle ear. So what structures are important in the external ear? That is the auricle or pinna and the external auditory meatus. Remember, the external auditory meatus, as you can see in the diagram, you may be thinking about this, that this is the straight tube, but this is wrong. This is not the straight tube as far as clinical point of view. So the otologist, or which are examining our ear, they have to actually extend your ear backwards and laterally to usually see the tympanic membrane or the eardrum, because this is not the straight tube, because this part of the external acoustic meatus or the external auditory meatus is usually medial, and it extends backwards and upwards, okay. And this part, which is more interior, or which is more inside to the eardrum, or which is more near to the tympanic membrane or eardrum, this part is usually medial and bulging towards the front and downwards. So mainly, if you will look from the front, then it is going like this. External auditory meatus, okay. So this is going like this one. That's why your otologist will be extend your ear like this, in this direction, so that he or she can make the proper view of the eardrum or tympanic membrane. Further, the length of this external auditory meatus is about 24 millimeter, in which this part is about 16 mm. This part is about the 8 mm, and this part is about the 16 mm approximately. The anterior part which is more externally situated. This part is made up of, that is the 1/3 part of the external auditory meatus is made up of the cartilage, and inner 2/3 part of the external auditory meatus is made up of the bone. That is a very important point. So this part over here, this part is made up of the cartilage, and this part is made up of the bone. Further, in the as far as difference is concerned between these two parts, between cartilages and the bony or osseous part of our external auditory meatus or the external acoustic meatus, is that it has the skin and have the sebaceous glands, okay, and the sweat glands or the oil producing glands, okay, which helps in the lubrication of this part of our ear or the external auditory acoustic meatus. Also, they have the follicles, they have the hair follicles. That's why the bacteria like staphylococcus, they have more chances to develop furuncles in this part of the cartilaginous part of the external acoustic meatus. So this point is important in clinical point of view. Whereas in the bony part of the external acoustic meatus, they do not have the hair follicles, and they do not have the skin with the hairs or the oil glands or sebaceous glands. They do not have the these kinds of glands. So usually the infection is having the much lesser chance as compared to the cartilaginous one. So this was the detail about the external ear, or mainly the external acoustic meatus. Further, they have some differences over here. For example, here is our parotid gland. So any infection can transfer or can pass from the external acoustic meatus to the parotid gland, and can cause the parotiditis, for example, inflammation of the parotid glands, and vice versa. From the parotid gland also, it can travel up to the external acoustic meatus, cartilaginous part of the external acoustic meatus. And here also we have, so here is the parotid gland, for example. Okay, so here also it can pass. This is the foramen of Huschka, through which the infection can cause the penetration, perforation, and can cause the parotiditis, and vice versa. So mainly overall overview of the external ear, simply you just remember that external ear has two main parts, that is the auricle or pinna, and the external auditory meatus or external acoustic meatus. So let's name the parts of the external ear, which I told you just now. So this is our ear, as you can see, okay, and this I have drawn, this is the bony part, this is the bone. So actually I have told you already that the external part of the external acoustic meatus is made up of the cartilage. 1/3 part of the external acoustic meatus is made up of the cartilage, and 2/3 part of the external acoustic meatus is made up of the bone. As you can see, that bone is covering this part. Okay, I hope this makes sense. So this part is the lobule. I'm not naming those parts. Okay, just let's name them. That this is the lobule. This is the auricle, also called as the pinna. Okay, this part, this whole part, the length of this external acoustic meatus is 24 mm in length, as I have already mentioned. This part is the external acoustic meatus, or external auditory meatus, as you pronounce, external acoustic meatus. Okay, now moving further, this was about the external ear. So mainly what parts you have to remember, at least as far as external ear is concerned. So our ear is divided into the external ear, middle ear, and internal ear or inner ear. Right now I'm talking about the external ear, starting with the first one. So external ear have basically two parts, which you have to remember at least. That is the auricle or pinna, and the auricular pinna, and the external auditory meatus or external acoustic meatus. So these are the two main parts as far as external ear is concerned. So this was about the external ear. Now moving further, and let's proceed towards the middle ear. Now middle ear is important. Actually middle ear has three main important bones, which are one of the smallest bones present in our human body, and among those three, stapes is the smallest bone present in our body, which is present in the inner ear and part of the auditory ossicles. Os means bone, auditory bones. So this is the which is connecting the external ear with the middle ear. So this bone is the malleus. So malleus is connected with the tympanic membrane or the eardrum. So this is the tympanic membrane. Let me name it. So this membrane is the tympanic membrane. Tympanic membrane. Okay. This bone I have drawn. This is the malleus. Malleus is mainly connected with the tympanic membrane. Okay, tympanic membrane, or you can say eardrum. Tympanic membrane is also called as the eardrum. You must have heard about this. Moving further, after malleus we have the incus, which is one more bone present in the middle ear or the part of the auditory ossicle. So malleus, incus, and stapes. Stapes is mainly connecting the middle ear with the inner ear. So the malleus was connecting the external ear with the middle ear, and stapes is connecting the middle ear with the internal one or the inner ear. Okay. So actually I have talked about these three auditory ossicles. Now one more extension is going towards the pharynx from the middle ear. And what is that? This extension, as you can see, this is going towards the pharynx. Okay. So this tube, what is the function of this tube? First of all, what is the name of this tube? As it is approaching the pharynx, so this tube is also called as the pharyngotympanic tube or pharyngotemporal tube. Okay. So this is the pharyngotympanic tube, or you can say this is the Eustachian tube. Okay, this tube is also called as the Eustachian tube or the pharyngotympanic tube. Why it is pharyngotympanic? Because it is approaching the pharynx, so pharyngotympanic, as it is the tympanic membrane. So pharyngotympanic tube or Eustachian tube. So this tube is named as the pharyngotympanic tube. Pharyngotympanic tube, or also called as the Eustachian tube. Eustachian tube. What is the function of this tube? What is the purpose of this tube? This tube actually maintains the equal atmospheric pressure in the outside world and in our inside our ear. That is the middle ear. So whatever pressure is outside, it is maintaining the equal pressure inside our middle ear. Okay. So this tube connects the tympanic middle ear with the pharynx and maintains in equalizing the atmospheric pressure which is outside to the inner side. So that is the purpose of the pharyngotympanic tube or Eustachian tube. Now this was about the middle ear. Now I will talk about the boundaries of the middle ear, because that is very important to know about the boundaries of the middle ear. They have the 6 boundaries and we must know about these boundaries. I will talk about that, but before that let me talk about the inner ear too. Okay. So middle ear is connected to the inner ear. Stapes is mainly attached with the inner ear, from the middle ear to the inner ear. And what you can see over here in the inner ear is a structure like snail. So this looks like snail, okay? And what are these structures? These rounded structure I've drawn. This is the cochlea. So what structure is this? This structure is the cochlea. Okay. This is the vestibule. So this structure is the vestibule. And these three extensions, as you can see, these are arranged perpendicularly to each other. That is, they are arranged at right angles to each other, and they are called as they are named as actually semicircular canals. Semicircular canals. So basically, at least what structure you should remember as far as inner ear is concerned, these are these three structures: semicircular canals, vestibule, and the cochlea. External ear, so the main structures which you must remember as far as ear is concerned. In the external ear, you must remember about the auricle or pinna and the external acoustic meatus or external auditory meatus. In the inner ear, you must know about the auditory ossicles, which are made up of three bones: malleus, incus, and stapes. Malleus, incus, and stapes. Malleus connects with the external ear from the middle ear, and stapes connects the middle ear with the inner ear. Okay. And in the inner ear, we have three structures: semicircular canals, which are arranged perpendicular to each other, arranged at right angles to each other, and the vestibule and the cochlea. The snail-like structure present in our inner ear or internal ear. Further, these two holes, as you can see, these are actually the windows. Okay, these are actually the windows which are connecting the middle ear with the inner ear. So this window, as you can see, this is called as the oval window, and this is called as the round window. So this is the oval window. Oval window. So basically this one, and this is the round window. Okay, so this is the round window. Now, what is the purpose of these junctions which are connecting the middle ear with the inner ear? So I will talk about that. So you must be surprised at how we hear the different kinds of voices, how we hear the different kinds of sounds. The physiology behind it, that whenever the sound waves are coming through our external ear, goes into the external acoustic meatus. Okay, so the sound waves are coming, for example, sound waves are coming and traveling throughout the external acoustic meatus or auditory meatus, and then it will go towards the tympanic membrane or eardrum. Then the vibrations in the eardrum will be detected by these auditory ossicles. So the vibrations, whatever vibrations which are causing by these sounds or voices or vibrations, whatever you say, so these voices will vibrate the eardrum or tympanic membrane, which will cause the vibration of these auditory ossicles. Okay, the malleus, incus, and stapes. So what these auditory ossicles do mainly, that with the vibration of these auditory ossicles, here is the endolymph. Okay, endolymph or perilymph. So it will move inside the middle ear, and it will pass through the round window and comes to the cochlea. And cochlea have the cochlear hair cells. They have the hair cells. So with the vibration, the fluid moves from the middle ear into the inner ear with the help of these windows, that is the round window, okay, and the oval window. So the fluid will come into the inner ear. So cochlear hair cells will be moved as the vibrations will be there, as there will be the moving in the fluid, that is the endolymph and perilymph. So what it will cause, that these cochlear cells, as the hair cells will be moving, of these cochlea, so there are nerves. That is the eighth nerve, which is combinedly forming the vestibulocochlear nerve, which is the eighth nerve. So mainly the nerve from the cochlea and the nerve from the vestibule, together called as the vestibulocochlear nerve, also called as the eighth nerve, cranial nerve number 8, goes to the pons from both the sides, of course, and sends the signals to the brain. So in the brain they goes to the pons, and that's how we able to hear the different kinds of voices. That is the physiology behind the hearing of different voices. So here the signals comes from the cochlea. So this is the, for example, this is the cochlear nerve, okay, and this is the vestibular nerve, which is joining further the cochlear nerve, and they moves out of the ear with the help of the, remember this part was the external acoustic meatus. Here at the end of the inner ear we have the internal acoustic meatus, through which is guiding actually the vestibulocochlear nerve from the inner ear to the brain stem, the pons more precisely. So these nerves are going to the pons, and of course from the another side also they are coming, okay, and they are sending the signals like this, and that's how we can hear the voices or we can hear the sounds. So this cochlear nerve and the vestibular nerve combinedly forming the vestibulocochlear nerve, making the eighth cranial nerve. Also the facial nerve also comes to the pons and helps in the physiology of hearing. So that's what the points about the basic concept behind the physiology of hearing mainly. Now two muscles are very important, which are coming from the middle ear. That is the tensor tympani coming from the tympanic membrane. So the tensor tympani muscle, and the stapedius muscle. Likewise we have the stapedius bone and we have the stapedius muscle too, which holds these structures together. Okay, this was about the anatomy of the ear. Now, as I said, that boundaries of middle ear are very important. So let's talk about the boundaries of middle ear, that how they are arranged with different kinds of structures, anteriorly, posteriorly, laterally, medially, and the superior and inferior parts. So let's talk about the boundaries of the middle ear now. So I need some space. So let me rub this portion and let me draw the diagram over here. So for example, actually I'm trying to make the 3D structure so that you can really understand about that, what I'm trying to explain you. So this structure is like you, but I'm trying to show the different surfaces of our middle ear. That is the, as you can imagine from this diagram, that this is going to be the lateral side, this is going to be the medial side, the superior one, the inferior one, anterior one, and the posterior one on the back side. So the superior one, if I will talk about the superior one, so this structure, this middle ear I've drawn over here, okay, just to simplify the walls, different kinds of different walls, just to simplify the walls of the middle ear, and wall structures they are arranged to. So the superior one is arranged with this wall is called the as it is connected with the temporal part. So this is called the temporal wall or the tegmentum wall. Okay, so this is the tegmentum wall, the superior one, tegmentum wall or the temporal wall. The medial one is also called as the, this was the superior one, the medial one, the more medial one is also called as the labyrinth wall. Why it is called as labyrinth wall? It is called as labyrinth wall because these structures which I have told you just now, that vestibule and cochlea, that they are combinedly known as the labyrinth. So remember that superior wall was called the tegmentum wall, of course, and this medial wall is called as the labyrinth wall. So this is very important, that medial wall is called a labyrinth wall. Why it is called a labyrinth wall? Because these vestibule and cochlea, they are combinedly known as the labyrinth. That's why the medial wall is called as the labyrinth wall. So here, as you can see, upper side, the temporal side, the tegmentum wall. Medially, more medially, here is the labyrinth wall. Laterally, as you can see, the tympanic membrane, that's going to be the tympanic wall. Okay, so the lateral one, this is going to be the tympanic wall. Tympanic wall, lateral wall. Okay, so this is the superior one, this is the medial one, this is the lateral one. As if you talk about the inferior wall, then you can talk about the jugular wall, because the jugular veins are going over there. That is the inferior one. So the more inferiorly, the jugular veins are going over there. So jugular veins and so basically those structures are going over there. That's why the inferior wall is also called as the jugular wall. Now the anterior wall is called as the carotid wall. Okay, so carotid arteries are going over there. So for example, this is the anterior wall. So anterior wall, I am writing over here that it is called as the carotid wall. Carotid wall, which is more anterior. And the posterior, that is the mastoid wall. Mastoid wall, which is more posterior. Okay, so these are the structures which are present. Let me highlight them. So the lateral wall was the tympanic wall, the anterior wall was the carotid wall, the posterior wall was the mastoid wall, the more medially it was the labyrinth wall, and inferiorly it was the jugular wall, and the superior one is the tegmentum wall, which is more arranged more towards the temporal side. About the mastoid wall, there is the mastoid-like structure is present, the mastoid cavity, and they have the mastoid cells. And in case of any kind of inflammation due to any bacteria, the fluid can accumulate over there in the mastoid cavity and can cause mastoiditis. Just for the clinical point of view. So this was about the boundaries. So this portion is the boundaries. Basically, boundaries. Okay, so these are the boundaries of the middle ear, of course. Boundaries of middle ear. Okay, so these are the boundaries of middle ear: superior, inferior, anterior, posterior, more medial, and the lateral. And